In the year 2000, struggling novelist Dan Brown put out a thriller called Angels and Demons, about a Harvard professor of symbology named Robert Langdon, who's brought in to solve a Catholic-themed murder mystery involving lots of weird, impossible wordplay puzzles, especially ambigrams, which are words that look the same or have a second meaning if you physically flip them over. The novel, like his previous work, didn't sell very well, but he kept Langdon as the protagonist for his fourth novel, The Da Vinci Code, which also featured the character being brought in to solve a Catholic-themed murder mystery involving lots of weird, impossible wordplay puzzles. And thanks to its simple, dopamine hit treasure hunt plot, as well as the controversy of calling things into question involving the Catholic Church, became an astonishing hit, one of the most successful novels of all time. This despite its prose being described as clumsy, as well as committing style and word choice blunders in almost every paragraph. Inevitably, though, it was so successful it had to lead to a film adaptation. And from the Academy Award-winning director of How the Grinch Stole Christmas and the Academy Award-winning screenwriter of Batman and Robin, down the pipe it came. With a star-studded cast including Tom Hanks, Audrey Tautou, Ian McKellen, Alfred Molina, Paul Bettany, and Jean Reno. It was also an astonishing hit, grossing $760 million worldwide in 2006 dollars, and becoming the number 2 highest-grossing film of that year, behind only Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Man's Chest. And in front of Superman, the X-Men, James Bond, kids hits, and this genre's closest action associate, Ethan Hunt. The movie itself is the same kind of lumbering fetch quest that the novel is, with Langdon and his associate Sophie Neveu sprinting to various weighty European locations and either vomiting reams of information on one another, or having a separate NPC vomit information onto both of them. It got a lot of attention for being blasphemous or whatever, because 2006 was a long time ago, back when trashy airport novels could still garner religious controversies. Rewatching the film recently, it's amazing how much the weight of the film's twists rely on you not only having a working familiarity, but a working reverence with the intricacies of the Bible, as so many of the shocks rest on you definitely knowing what definitely happened in the Bible. And then silly-haired Forrest Gump over here being like, but what if it didn't? And you being like, ugh. The Da Vinci Code had a world premiere at the Cannes Film Festival, of all f***ing places, and then came out in theaters wide 2 days later, on May 19th, 2006. That same day, game developers The Collective, creators of quite a few licensed games that will probably appear on this project, dropped an adaptation of the Da Vinci Code for PlayStation 2 and Xbox. Now, this feels like a pretty inexplicable thing to adapt into game form. The kind of thing that would fittingly make you say, they made a game of that? But it's not as ridiculous as it might seem. As you heard a paragraph and a half ago, I described the narrative as a breathless fetch quest full of NPCs, already slotting it into a video game framework. This is a book and movie already structured like a video game, so why not lean into that? There's real potential here, especially coming in the wake of similar religiously tinged adventure puzzle games like the Gabriel Knight series, which also have a very trashy interactive airplane thriller vibe to them. If you were the one being asked to solve these wacky word puzzles instead of Castaway over here, maybe this could become a more compelling thing. The first thing you notice when popping in the Da Vinci Code game is that this is not an adaptation of the film. Tom Hanks and Audrey Tautou are nowhere to be found. This is an adaptation of the book, which makes sense since it allows the collective to lean into the puzzle-solving and Jesus-y elements of the book, and not have to give all their money to Sully and Amelie over here. Here, Robert Langdon is voiced by Robert Clotworthy, who might be best known as the narrator for Ancient Aliens. Sophie is voiceover legend Jennifer Hale, who, if you've watched a cartoon or played a video game in the last 30 years, you've probably heard her in something. She's Ms. Keen in Powerpuff Girls, she's Naomi in Metal Gear Solid, she's lots of things. Anyway, same as the film, Sophie's dad, the curator of the Louvre, has been murdered. And Robert Langdon is called in to investigate, but also is seemingly framed for the murder. You play as either Robert or Sophie, depending on what each section of the story requires, but they play the same. Utilizing the puzzles from the book as the puzzles for the game is a nifty idea, but very quickly you hit upon the major problem with both. These puzzles come in two flavors: insultingly obvious, or opaque, bordering on literally impossible. None of the puzzles make sense as a thing a human being would have pre-planned to leave available just in case they happen to be murdered by a member of a secret society. So it becomes tedious things like either punch in lots of letters until you get all the right ones in, or read 17 pages of this dry history textbook to figure out which of these liquids we can mix to clean off a painting. There's no in-between where any of this is compelling. It really calls into question the quality of the original writing when you have the time to actually consider it, and it's not just blasting past your face with high cinematic production values. When I solved this basic anagram, the game yelled out "decrypted," which made me laugh out loud. The other part of this game, the one we have to talk about, is the quote-unquote stealth segments. A lot of the game involves either sneaking around various locales trying to get into places where the clues are, or where something that will prove our innocence or whatever is, sneaking past security guards and monks and all kinds of things. The issue is twofold. Sometimes the opponents are so oblivious you can nearly walk directly past them, and sometimes they'll spot you from all the way across the building and run over to investigate. There's no strategy that consistently works throughout the game, and that leads to the real star of the show, the melee combat. If you are caught by a guard, you go into a series of QuickTime events that involve you, as either Robert or Sophie, getting into a physical altercation. This happens every single time you meet anyone, and never stops being completely over-the-top ridiculous. The narrative about how innocent and unfairly targeted you are by security on circumstantial evidence really starts falling apart when you're required to sneak up behind an employee and brutally bludgeon him with a metal stanchion, being told by the game to drag him into the shadows so nobody finds him, specifically so you can just get a UV light or whatever to solve another clue. Like, okay, yeah, maybe Robert isn't guilty of killing Sophie's dad, but they're sure committing crimes now! Ultimately, that's the thing that sinks the Da Vinci Code game. It's the kind of thing that seems tailor-made for a puzzle-solving action-adventure, but its source material is so f***ing stupid and dull that it makes the game an absolute slog. Seriously, there's so much reading here. It's just endless homework, little of which ever actually amounts to anything, and almost all of which just descends into judo flipping a monk onto the floor of his priory so you can play wordplay detective. And yeah, it's funny when they talk to each other without making eye contact, or being asked to really check out this old man's hot bod. But those moments are few and far between, and the rest is so deadly dull that it feels like punishment. Just like the movie, the vibes mostly work, since that sort of menacing church choir always hits the spot, but the meat of this game is entirely rotten. Hey guys, I hope you had fun with this. I'm trying to find time to diversify, so it's not just Dreamcast games exclusively for the next 4 years of my life, so I hope you guys check this out and enjoy it, and I'm excited to do more, because there's so many games out there that make you say, they made a game of that? Thanks for watching.